Hi, everyone. My name's Greg Knight.
I'm Ricardo Avila.
It's time to update our Take 2 promo, and so we've broken out our Gen Z slang machine for Ricardo once again so that he can communicate with the kids.
I hate this.
I know you do. Here we go. The first 100 episodes of our podcast were very different from what we do now.
Those episodes are Ohio AF. You're Delulu if you think anyone stands those pods. You may as well just yeet those things out of here, no cap.
You're right, but we don't want to eliminate our show history. We want to improve it by going back into the raw audio while updating our quality.
That's the vibe. Like you're going to flex those old pods with a bougie glow up. That low-key slaps, fam. Because right now they're pretty chuggy. Good Lord.
Scroll down. Okay. Listen, culture evolves over time, and our spin-off pod, Take 2, gives us the chance to go back and evolve our old podcast right along with it.
That's a bar, chat. I think this idea is pretty lit. It beats having a big yikes sitting in our archives. You got to bling those things out with some fresh drip if you want that new subs riz, period. God, no wonder the youth are struggling. Go ahead.
So listen to Take 2 in the Popping Collars feed and hear our past selves grow before your very ears.
Yeah, these pods are bussin'. You got a dub with this, plus 1,000 aura. This idea is giving. You ate.
I wonder what would happen if we changed the slang machine to the millennial setting.
Get in, loser. We're going podcasting.
Okay, that makes sense.
They don't go far. They cost a fortune. So you're in the middle of the desert, you say, we're running low on electric. Do they have a charger? They don't work in the cold and they don't go far. But they want everybody to have an electric car. We don't have enough electricity. What do you think of an electric car? This is beautiful. Whoa! This is a different panel than I've had. Everything's computer. This is really amazing. I love Tesla.
Is someone getting the best, the best, the best, the best of you? Is someone getting the best?
Welcome to Popping Collars, the podcast that lives at the intersection of religion and pop culture, the longest running Episcopal pod of all time, the number one Christmas podcast on Pandora in December of 2020. The only globe-trotting indie filmmaking pod, probably. The pod your bishop listens to on the way to your confirmation service. Don't ask them about that, though, because they'll just deny it. What is up, people? My name is Greg Knight. I am your host for this 12-year-old pod. That's right. We're almost teenagers on this journey. That's why we don't return your calls and we frequently roll our eyes at your show's suggestions. It's not us, it's just the podcast hormones. And it's summertime, which means we're on vacation. And therefore, we go back to what's become an annual tradition, the summer birthday sampler. For those of you who are new, and how in the world is it possible that you just started listening with this pod? We're going to catch you up on 12 years of podding in one episode. Here's how the birthday sampler works. I fire up the random number generator, I hit the button 12 times, and whatever episode number comes up, we play a clip from the corresponding episode of the pod. We'll do 10 clips, chat in between each one, and call it a day. Sound good? All right. Before we get into it, just a state of the pod update for you all. Boy, have we come a long way. Literally, we're still cranking out the weekly pods, even though that was just going to be a COVID era thing. Crazy. PCTV is back this year after folks asked for its return. We started the year on fire with our video content, including supplemental material for Going on 30, a Camino prep series, and Popping Classics movie reviews. We've hit a delay on a lot of those projects because I went and got a new job, and it's been hard to work in pod editing along with video editing into the new schedule. Don't worry, you'll see a giant surge of content at some point. Just be patient. Finally, the biggest item is the pilgrimage project. I just got back from Spain. recording all of the amazing pods and videos that you're going to get a chance to see soon. And now that that's in the books, we're anticipating the next phase of this project is going to be huge. 10 journeys, 6 continents, telling one human story. That's what's coming down the trail, and we've just taken our first steps. Okay, here we go. Number generator on the screen, pushing the button 12 times. And we land on episode number 279 from July 24th, 2023. It's a PCTV episode when Ryan and I discussed the fabulous FX television show Reservation Dogs. It's serendipitous timing that this episode came up on the randomizer, as Ryan Parker and I just talked about Sterling Harjo's follow-up series, The Lowdown, a few months ago. You won't have to dig back very far to find that one. Anyway, Reservation Dogs tells the story of 4 teenage friends living on an indigenous reservation in Oklahoma. When we meet their group, tragedy has recently struck, as a member of their friend group has recently died, leading the crew to want to honor his memory with a road trip to California. The show is equally hilarious and heartbreaking, something that Ryan and I dig into in this clip.
Hey, Cheese. Why don't you say a prayer? You're good at it.
A little long, but go for it, bro. You got this.
Okay. Well... He, she, hers, his, they, genderless being. We're here for our friend Daniel. We just wanted this moment to be significant. Like in the movies, like a never-ending story when the wind blows down to the basement and Ashton realized that he's been reading about himself, but like his inner self was actually Atreyu and...
Jeez.
Sorry.
Keep going, bro.
We didn't get to say goodbye to you, Daniel. And, you know what? To be honest, I've been kind of mad at you. You're my hero, man. Now you're not here to make things right, or better. Willie Jack, she cares for her family members. And now she's lost her brother, cousin, friend. And Bear, he lost his best friend. Now Pete Swim's missing. And Laura, she lost her hope. Remember, she looked into the future, she'd see you there, man. You're our brother. Remember you for all the good things we've done together. And we're out here for you, man. We just hope we're doing the right thing. Cheese.
And that's the thing, though. Like, that's the thing about the show that just catches you off guard, is that you can go from like side-splitting comedy with like The Spirit or Uncle Brownie or something like that to just like weeping at, you know, how this show like touched you in a moment, you know?
Yeah.
It's very well done. Like, it's
starting to feel like this is one of the shows we've liked the most in this podcast. I don't know. I feel like we're glowing over this.
I mean, you know, it's just well written. It's well thought out. Like, you know, hey,
Yeah.
Our next clip is from an Under the Stole interview, episode number 329 from July 8th, 2024, when I invited Sean Small, the executive director of Wonder Voyage, onto the pod to talk about his book, Into the Wonder. Sean has always been a great guest for us because he just gets it. And what I love about this episode is that because Sean's a fan of the pod, we were able to do what would normally be a generic interview-style conversation in our Going on 30 movie format. because Sean's story was so influenced by the first Indiana Jones film, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Here's Sean and I discussing the impact that a sense of wonder can have on the spiritual lives of young people and why pilgrimage may just be the type of experience that saves the capital C church. Okay, let's talk about the lasting legacy theology of this stuff. And I don't know, let's talk about Wonder Voyage and what you do. So walk me through a little bit, like, how did you get started with Wonder Voyage? We've talked about the spirit of adventure and what it was that Raiders kind of conjured up in you, but how did you get started doing this? And what are you most proud of over the 25-year history of your company here?
Man, great questions. I started because I had done kind of parish youth ministry for 10 years. Mm-hmm. And I started it really, I talk about it in the book, but it was a trip to Guatemala where this was before this was actually popular lingo. That kind of white savior thing never hit right with me.
Yeah.
And I took 25 youth to Guatemala and lived with an indigenous tribe up in the mountains for a couple weeks. And we took more of a, hey, let us learn, put us to work where you want us to go. It was such a transformative experience culturally. Like we were just in it and we were learning every day from local storytellers and working with churches, of course, but it was not your typical, evangelical kind of, it was really kind of putting our place learning and then, hey, let us be a part of whatever the story is that's playing out here. What is that story that's playing out here? I did that for a few years. And when I turned about 31 and was ready to kind of be out of full-time parish work, this dream to start this organization, because I could do it really well. Mm-hmm. And I loved the idea of us diving into a story and learning something about, my background is as a writer, and I went to film school, was about these unfolding stories. Mm. So I thought, why don't we create, to the best of our ability, and I'll get back to you guys because you're one of the easiest to do this with. Why don't we create an unfolding story and organically just let the culture speak to us. Let these places speak to us. Yeah, that was 25 years ago, and we've let out, 20,000 plus people. We're in 80 countries right now.
Wow.
And it's really, what's cool is, and you and I have done this a couple times, but when somebody calls up with us, we have this kind of method that we walk through to create something very much to the DNA of who they are. Mm-hmm. What's that? You guys were so fun because you called up, and said, I want to do something nobody else has done before. And so you wanted to follow. Well, maybe you could tell. Give me the pitch you gave me when you called the office.
Well, I don't know. I mean, when you're talking about stories, that's exactly where we were coming from when it comes to our pilgrimage journeys. So at Bethesda, we've organized and executed 5 pilgrimages in my time, going back to 2015. We've done 2 hikes on the Camino to Santiago de Compostela in Spain. We've done a portion of St. Francis Way in Italy to Assisi. And we've done a portion of the Pilgrim's Way to Canterbury in England. And so, and all of those, like the formation of those trails, or what it was the way that we framed it was, where are we called to go? Like, where is God calling us to go? Like, what's God calling us to learn about and to think about and to talk about and to incorporate into our lives and to see sort of being lived out in our journey, right? In our faith journey. And so when it came to the Norway trip that we recently did, that was it always starts with like humble beginnings. We had a lock-in, which, is pretty typical of like youth ministry. You do lock-ins at churches and stuff. But the thing about Bethesda that, makes lock-ins really valuable is that for a lot of these kids, they don't get the chance to explore the worship space at all, or to really sort of take in what's around them very much, because the only time that the worship space is ever being used, there's like a service going on, and it's not really encouraged for them to stare off, at other things, or to get up out of their pews and to walk around and look at the artwork up close, or to look at the stained glass up close. And there was a stained glass window like in the church of like this guy with a crown on his head. And the kids were asking me at the lock-in, like, who is that guy? And what's his story? And I was like, I have no idea. And so we Googled it, and I was like, that is Saint Olav, the Viking king of Norway. And oh, by the way, he has a trail associated with him to a place called Trondheim, to a cathedral up there. And my high schoolers were like, well, can we do that? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know. We can see. And so that was the kernel. And from there, it just became researching the trail and how many people do this and how hard is it and how, what resources would we need. And once I was comfortable that it was something that our group could do, I reached out to you and said, Sean, how do we make this happen? How do we live into this story? So, yeah.
You guys have always been so adventurous, but I got a question for you. So, and you're used to this. I mean, your kids, they were sold into this. You had leaders on this one that started as high school students, but most people go to a place and they want to go see things, right? They want to see these spots. You guys are walking 6 hours a day, usually 10 to 15, sometimes more than that, miles a day.
Yeah.
I happen to get to walk with you a couple times on this through the mountains. So through farms, through this. What is it that you see as the benefit of this compared to the more touristy kind of pilgrimages, or, going, like, what is it about walking? How do you convince a bunch of high school kids to walk 77 miles over 6 days where they are completely within the back country, right? They're experiencing, and they did experience it way better than, because they're lived at a farm in the mountains for days and things like that. But how do you go about, like, I'm always like, why don't more people do this? You're one of like a handful of churches that does this. How do you convince it? Why is that?
I think first of all, it comes down to how comfortable is the leadership of the group with risk, right? Because the way that we've always sort of encouraged our group to think is that, what we do at Bethesda, our primary function is worship and learning in parish settings, right? So, and that's true of like most churches around the country. But what I always sort of encourage the kids to think about, and what I always, what I've had success with, because I think it's ultimately in the groups that I've worked with, it's where they've found the most sort of spiritual hunger, or just sort of searching, is, are you willing to risk leaving what's comfortable behind and exploring what you don't know, kind of exploring the unknown? And for the groups that I've worked with over the course of my tenure at Bethesda, more often than not, the youth are more interested in seeing what God has in store out there than they are trying to make sense of their lives back here with the resources that they're sort of totally comfortable and familiar with. So what I would say is the way that we've had success is that, it's been about sort of communicating this idea of, I wonder what's around that next turn. I know what's around the turn back home, but I don't know what's around the next turn here in Norway. And can you wonder with me what's around that next turn? And maybe it's something amazing, and maybe it's just another goat, like who knows? But it's that sense of wonder and that sense of not knowing what the next day holds that I think is really captivating for kids. And then the other thing that I would say, and this can't be stated enough, in my opinion, especially with Generation Z kids that I've worked with, and even Alpha kids that I'm working with that are coming up. Speed. The world is so fast. The world is so incredibly fast. It's fast for us as adults, and you can only imagine how fast it is for kids. And giving young people, especially young people who are on a threshold moment from one thing to another. So high school graduates or kids who have recently faced divorce or some kind of family crisis or something, or kids who have recently had a death in the family or something like that. If you have kids who are at this threshold moment, the ability to slow down and walk 3 miles an hour and not 300 miles an hour is such a gift that when they're able to reflect back on it, they realize like how much they were able to just sort of stop their brains and just take in what was being given to them. And I think that that's why hiking pilgrimage is such a big factor for how we think about formation at Bethesda, because it's the time where we're finally able to slow down and listen to how God is at work in the world around us. So that's what I would say. Yeah.
It's so amazing. It really, when I watch like a group like yours, or when we go out with a group, when I do this, you think about when we read the gospel and we're seeing these moments with Jesus. And I think all that moment came out of that 30-mile walk with him and the disciples, the men and women that followed him. Like that 3 mile an hour Jesus, we don't have what was recorded during that time, but we know that's when the meat comes out. That's when the depth is coming out. And I get, I had the privilege of watching your students. We would tell the story of St. Olav, a portion of the story, as they headed to Trondheim, who ended up being a martyr and had this massive change in transformation in who he was over a period of years, from this bloodthirsty Viking to a man who literally said, for the sake of peace, he allowed himself to basically be cut down. But we told that story, and it's funny because your kids, when we tell that in the daytime, we throw something out to them. And at the end of the day, as they're talking, you realize they've been chewing on this all day, for 6-7 hours, talking with other people, just that's been going on. I remember one moment when I was with you, that one girl that was on the trip, that you stopped and you took a picture of her, and she was just standing, looking out over, she's on top of a mountain, looking out over the valley. And you, to me, it was a real sacred, holy moment, because here she was with a group, but at that moment, she was conversing in her mind, in her heart, with the Creator. And she said so much, but that moment, you realize, had she not had that time to slow down, that time to walk up this mountain, that wouldn't have happened that way. Yeah, man, I can't tell you, Greg, how much out of the 25 years I've done this, how much I've appreciated working with you, and that you have challenged these kids this way. There's more. I see these levels of transformation, but in the way that you do it, it's rare to see that kind of transformation happen. So thank you for having the bravery to, what we call, be a doorkeeper of wonder, someone who, we can't produce wonder, we can't make wonder, but we can open the door and invite people in and see what the Creator does in that. And you've been that for this.
Well, and I would say too, Sean, and this is a testament to what it is that you're talking about. And I'm so glad that you frame like Wonder Voyage as a way to engage stories, right? It's a way to engage our, like, not only our faith stories, but the stories that came before us. When you're talking about the story of St. Olaf, like, there were a lot of kids on like day 4, day 5, sort of in the middle before we had gotten to the punchline of like his martyrdom, if you will, that were really curious, like, well, what happened to this guy? Like, did he make it? And we're sort of curious about that story. But just like you said, we're reflecting on, okay, so if that was true for Olaf, what's true for me, right?
Right.
That's so key to what we're doing, is like, it's taking these living stories that exist around us, either throughout history or throughout cultures that we're not familiar with, and we're adding those stories to our story so that we can make sense out of, well, what's God doing in my life? And what is my faith story? If that's what's happening for these other people. And I just think that, like, it's such a gift what you guys do, because you're inviting these kids to think of themselves as something much bigger. Think of their stories on like the Indiana Jones level and
Yeah.
not on like a small level, which is great.
Yeah, and coming all around as a 13-year-old kid sitting in that theater that day, I think what I realized watching Raiders of the Lost Ark or sitting through to the very end as the music is, I suddenly had a longing to be a part of a bigger story.
Mm-hmm.
I did not think I had a bigger story. And it's not that I wanted to be Indiana Jones. It was that I wanted to be in a bigger story. And I made a decision at that point to be open to that. And I was not a church kid. There was no religious background. I had no idea that the Spirit was grabbing a hold of me in that moment. Yeah. It would be years later before I had an encounter with Christ in a way that I was like, whoa, this is the way. Mm-hmm. But you imagine 13 years old, just with the bigger story. And I think so many organizations are out there and they don't really tap into these bigger stories that are everywhere all the time. And that they can be a part of that bigger story. So, yeah, I have to thank Steven Spielberg and George Lucas and Larry Kasdan and all, just for making it a great, fun film. But there was something bigger going on.
Yeah. Okay, now we're cruising. Let's push this button a few more times, see what we get next. And it's episode number 301, another PCTV episode. Wow, the randomizer is into streaming this year. This pod dropped on December 25th, 2023, when Ryan and I dug into the Hulu series Dope Sick. Merry Christmas! You know what? Since we've got multiple PCTVs going here, let's do this. One of the features we have on that show is what we called Industry Corner. This is when Ryan and I attempt to make sense of the current streaming landscape and forecast what's to come. And as you'll hear in this clip, sometimes we, and by that I mean I, can be loud wrong about the future of the streaming business.
Industry Corner. Let's get back on track. Industry Corner.
Industry Corner. You know what? We've never had a proper Hulu conversation. So it's time for a Hulu conversation.
Well, Hulu has just become a catch-all for like Fox and
it's cable.
ABC.
It's a cable channel.
You might as well have Hulu with live TV and don't have anything else.
Yeah.
But you won't be able to afford anything else after you.
That's true. It's gotten expensive. Do you remember back in the day when Hulu first launched and it was like, hey, do you want to catch up on shows that you missed the day before?
Was it like Parks and Rec? Could you watch stuff like that?
Oh my God, yeah. That's how I watched 30 Rock, because I could never watch it, when it was airing. So I just watched it on Hulu the day after.
Now it's this mashup of all these different networks and studios and
of all the streamers, it feels the most like old school cable. Yeah, it's got shows from different networks. It's got it's got movies, but usually kind of like cast off movies, that aren't on like HBO and stuff like that.
Like A- to B- and worse, but or B+ maybe the best you get. But then there was also, Palm Springs.
Oh, I love Palm Springs. That movie's gonna be
Every
a
now and then
classic.
there's like a really good title that hits, and
I mean, they have good stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
didn't that Caitlin Dever movie was on there, wasn't it?
I'm sorry, yeah, No One Will Save You. That's Hulu. That's one of those releases you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have it. I mean, I like Hulu. I mean, I did do I've dumbed down my Hulu service. I have ads now because I just refuse to keep paying more. When they ask me to pay more, I'm not going to do it.
I just feel like Hulu got into the game at the perfect time. It's like Netflix was on the come up. Hulu was like right there. I feel like they were coming up like when I was in seminary, because I remember seeing a Hulu ad at the Super Bowl one year when I was in seminary. I was like, holy crap, like how good is Hulu doing if they're able to get a Super Bowl ad?
Yeah.
And then after that, it was like it was over. They were one of the big streamers. I kind of have this feeling that Hulu's going to be fine. We talk about there's a lot of these streaming services like Peacock. Disney Plus is struggling a little bit. Paramount Plus always kind of struggled. I have a feeling like there's going to be some of these streamers that are going to have to
merge.
Yeah, they're just going to have to figure out, like these companies are going to have to figure out, do we want to keep dumping money into these things and losing money on these things? Or do we want to just go back to the old way where Netflix and Hulu had everything?
Yeah,
and I think that's where it ultimately end up,
Well, and the bundle was such a huge thing for Hulu, right? Like to be able to do Disney Plus, ESPN Plus, live TV. Like with Netflix, that's all you get, right? You're not. I mean, and you can see now where Netflix is trying to experiment with live sports, but it's kind of second tier. Amazon stepped into the live sports game, but Hulu having live TV and ESPN Plus, that's just such a huge value add for them that I think attracts folks.
Yeah, and what a weird crossover company, right? Because you've got Fox is a partner with you, NBC is a partner with you, ABC is a partner with you.
Well, Disney owns Fox and ABC.
Right.
So there's that. One-stop shopping.
Like old school cable. That's what I'm saying.
These prices, man, they're I mean, I'm not saying, people talk about this all the time, but I mean, they're mounting up. It's more than cable was.
Oh yeah. They've nickeled and dimed us like way over cable at this point.
Yeah.
We have Comcast down here. When I was in St. Louis, we had Charter.
Yep.
When I was in California, did we have Spectrum?
Yep.
I can't remember. Anyway, all that is to say that whatever cable company you have, I'm sure it sucks. My cable company sucks.
Yeah.
Wherever you live, I'm sure your cable company sucks. There's something about cable companies that they just, as a business, they all suck. And part of the reason is because they don't have to compete with anybody.
Sorry if there are any listeners that work for a cable company. We love you, but
I mean, I love you, but your company sucks. Yeah.
Go work for DirecTV or an app.
No, I just think what a scam, man, that the FCC has perpetrated where these companies don't have to compete with each other. They basically just have a monopoly in their region. Yeah. And so basically you're over a barrel every time you try to negotiate with them because they're like, okay, well, where else are you going to go? It's like,
YouTube TV. Great. Yeah. Pay $8 a month.
Yeah. But I still got to pay them for internet. So now they'll just up my internet, right? Yep. No, I think, good for Hulu. I think that they, I still miss the old days of Hulu. I feel like one of those millennials that's like, I miss old Facebook, or something like that. But old Hulu was great, and I'm glad that they're still around. I hope they survive the streaming wars. Hitting the randomizer yet again, and well, that's awkward. Well, this doesn't seem random at all, or maybe it's the most random thing that could happen. Our next clip comes from the very next episode of the pod, number 302 from January 1st, 2024. That's weird. Anyway, it's all good because that episode was a take two. Take two for those of you who don't know, is our attempt to Star Wars Special Edition our old podcasts. Back in the day when I didn't quite know what I was doing in the editing department, our pods sounded a little rough. That's a generous way to put it. I find them endearing, but it can be helpful to spruce them up a little bit. It also gives us a chance to look back at old takes and provide current updates. So that's the nice answer for Take Two. The honest-to-God answer for Take Two is that the core 4 Popping Collars hosts just don't have schedules that allow us to get together, even virtually, every month. So we don't. We get together every other month, except this month. Listen, we've been doing this a long time. We need breaks. Anyway, this particular look back in the archives features the time we had Greg Brown on the pod to talk about YouTube, something that has become my default television watching, to be honest. Back when we had this conversation, it felt very new and exciting, and our conversation has this feel like we've discovered a new species. Check it out. Greg Brown, we will move to you next. Who were you assigned, and what makes your channel interesting?
Oh man, this is going to be a good one. It starts off with a good, confusing thing. So I was assigned someone named Simone Yetch, but her last name is spelled Giertz. She's Swedish, and so that last name pronunciation, I swear to God, I looked this up. She has a couple of different places where she pronounces her name for you. 3 or 4 years ago, she got her start. She's an engineering type, although that's not what she studied. And she builds robots and tries to solve sort of silly real-life problems. She's a robot that helps her wake up that's just this rubber hand that spins around and slaps her in the face. So there's a little bit of slapstick.
Like Pee-wee's Playhouse or something.
There's like Pee-wee's Playhouse, exactly. There's a little bit of slapstick. There's a little bit of, absurd. She's a chopping machine that helps her chop dinner, and like the food goes everywhere. The beer pouring machine breaks the glass that the beer is supposed to go into and stuff like that. Her shtick is not that she builds robots, it's that she builds crappy robots. And so she actually tries to build the worst, to solve the dumbest problem and to build the worst robot. And very, very often she fails.
It seems like such a simple brief. Make a coat hanger that folds. But simple designs are deceivingly complex, and after 3 years of work, here it is. We call it the coat hinger, and it's a completely new way of storing clothes. So if you have a shallow closet or any other space where you want to hang clothes but you can't fit a normal coat hanger, this one's for you.
So to use it, you just put on a clothing item, and then you fold it, and you hang it. How is this not already a thing? Like, as soon as I had the idea, I was like, somebody must have already thought about this. And there are foldable coat hangers that fold to fit in a suitcase, but none of them are meant to be hung folded with clothes on them, and none of them save space in this way.
What version is this?
Oh, it's version 124. This isn't even all of them.
She has a really great TED Talk from earlier this year, like maybe April, where she talks about how she got started and what the idea was. And you have to understand about her story, and she tells this story in a TED Talk, so I think I can share it, is that she started her life with a lot of performance anxiety. And so when she got motivated to really play around with creating things like robots, at first she was really locked down. And the thing that sort of unlocked her was allowing herself to sort of flip the script, to sort of say, well, I'm not going to build good robots. I'm actually going to build crappy robots, and that'll be fun. And as soon as it's fun, good ideas start to flow. If you watch her TED Talk and you're very perceptive, you'll notice that she's a very funny sort of swollen eyelid in the TED Talk. And unfortunately, what's happened, and through her vlog, she's kind of confessed this, and this is where it goes back to what you were saying, Betsy, that there's a confessional element. So that swelling evidently came from a small tumor in her head, in her brain. Yeah. And so, I'm not kidding, like camera and face, she talks about, there's a 10-minute one where she talks about being diagnosed with brain cancer. There's a little 1-minute one about 20 minutes before they take her for surgery. And then there's another one that is not that old, probably from August, where it's her first post back from recovery from surgery. And she shows her scar and she talks about the process and stuff like that. She's in her mid 20s. So this is a pretty scary moment. To see her kind of share all that is really profound. And to hear the stories of how different, supporters send her packages and notes and visit her and stuff like that, in a way that's, for the most part, I think, not creepy. It's a pretty amazing journey. And I think it exemplifies another sort of back and forth of it's not just the voice reflecting out and who's listening. There's this very big community that has gathered around her, such that when you look up her name, her latest one is she builds a tampon dispenser that's designed after a Pez machine. And so it's got the little
oh, wow.
Yeah. Which is great, right? In her videos, even the ones that aren't about her health, she talks about sort of what's going on and stuff like that. And it's engaging. I think an interesting question in my mind is, as we live with these people, will they continue to be, to be that open? Will that just be a window in their life, or will we know their life for a long time?
There's a relationship that you kind of have with this media in a way that you don't with things like TV or movie. Like, I don't have a relationship with Brad Pitt. Like, I may think that I do.
Divorce
but I don't really. Yeah. But there's something about YouTube, the fact that it's so it's such a user interface. I mean, you find your media, you find your hook. Here's this girl who's making cruddy robots. Yeah. And then all of a sudden a bunch of people start following her, and life still happens to her. It's a TV show to you, right? Yep. But it's her life.
To ride it out in the midst of it. And there must be something about that helps that illness not feel so lonely, because you feel like your body's betraying you, everything is leaving you. And maybe this solid continual piece will be these people, this community I built through my creativity.
And she has this mind of fixing things, right? This mind of making things and fixing things and engineering solutions. And stuff.
Yeah.
Simone Giertz appears to be like a Mark Rober type of creator, lots of fun with engineering and science. Unfortunately, Giertz reported in 2019 that her brain tumor had returned. She took viewers along on her journey through radiation treatment over the next year. Giertz eventually started her own product design company called Yetch, spelled Yetch, phonetically spelling her last name. She also has admitted to leaning on self-deprecating humor in her early videos in order to beat online trolls to the punch. She says she's working on cutting this self-comedy out of her life and embracing the goodness of her creativity. Yetch is still making content, and you can find her on her YouTube channel. We are up to our fifth clip, and that gives us episode number 368, the Pop Swap episode that was released on April 7th, 2025. The Pop Swap was the brainchild of Betsy Carmody and has become an annual staple of the pod. The format is that we pick an item from popular culture to assign to each other, something that is new or outside of our usual taste, and discuss. It's kind of like a Secret Santa gift exchange for movies, music, television, and beyond. But we're not actually going to listen to any of that in this clip. Here's the thing. We have a wonderful fan base that I am humbled and incredibly grateful for. 12 years down the road, it is stunning to me that folks listen to my smart friends saying smart things. But when it comes to putting the show together, the only person that I actually think about entertaining is me. It turns out I am the biggest Popping Collars fan of them all. And as a result, the finished pods that you all hear are the pods that I want to hear. I'm editing for an audience of one. So what you're going to listen to now is my favorite part of our mothership pods, the intro. That's because no one makes me laugh like the alchemy of this combo of my seminary classmates swapping stories with each other. Sorry, guys. This clip's for me.
All right, so I'm totally winging this. It's going to be great. Yeah. All right, we're ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Leaving it all in. Whatever gets
no cuts. One take.
One take, Betsy.
One take, Carmody. Let's go. We got this.
We'll back you up.
Okay. Hello, friends, and welcome to Popping Collars, the podcast that lives at the intersection of religion and popular culture. I am one of your co-hosts, quattro hosts. I don't know how we really call that because co-host means two. I don't know what it means when there's four, but I am one of them. And my name is Betsy Carmody, and I serve as head chaplain at Episcopal High School. And I'm joined today by my co-hostess and stirs. Let's start with Liz Easton. How you doing, Liz?
Oh my gosh, Betsy, I'm great. I'm coming to you live from Omaha, Nebraska, where I serve as the canon to the ordinary in the Diocese of Nebraska. Spring is springing here a little early, which
What does that look like in Nebraska?
Well, it looked like a really unexpectedly hot day that followed immediately after a blizzard, like really chaotic. But it's pretty. It's nice. It's everyone.
So on those days, are Nebraskans like shorts, flip flops? People are going to see my toes. I mean, what happens there?
Yeah, I saw so many babies on the backs of bikes.
Oh,
that's what you take your baby out on a bike on a day like
as
that.
opposed to bundling them in like a cocoon.
You're so
like
happy
sleeping
for
bag.
your baby to be outside.
Oh,
yeah, that just means you're sick of being cooped up inside with your baby. Got it. Okay.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go around the horn then. Let's go to Ricardo Avila. Ricardo, how are you?
Thank you, Betsy. Liz, I have to say, I worry about those. Whenever I see a parent and a child on a bicycle, I just think they're going to have a crash.
Seems crazy to me. I think adults on bicycles is kind of crazy. Like, if you know anyone who's gotten in a bike accident, they're like, I wish I never rode that bike.
Yeah.
Wish I went for a walk. But on a bike, you're really high up.
Yeah.
Got it. Yes. Yes, that's true. That's
Wait,
true.
are you riding like those old timey bikes with the giant wheel?
With the big wheel.
Yeah, exactly. One big
Those
wheel.
are going to tip over.
Yeah.
Those are going to tip over.
So,
Ricardo, you're not doing that.
Well, no, I'm not. I don't have a child or a bike. And
okay, great.
I'm actually clumsy on bicycles. I can't do it. I've had accidents out of nowhere. Can I tell you one of my most famous accidents? I was in the Gay Pride Parade in San Francisco, and in the Mikes on Bikes contingent, I borrowed my roommate's cowboy hat as part of my outfit. And he was you can't let anything happen to this hat or else. I was like, okay, fine.
Okay.
I'm bicycling along. There are 50,000 people watching and the Mike's on Bikes. And we had this whole clear part in front of us. I thought, well, I'm going to go really fast because it'll be fun to bicycle on the parade. So I go really fast and my hat starts to come off with the wind and I freak out. And so in instinct, I slammed the brakes together with my hands, like suddenly to stop myself. And I go flying off the bicycle. And the crowd gasps. They're like, and I roll and I got bloody and everything. And then I was like, okay. And then I stood up and I did a little ta-da, and everybody started clapping for me. Because what are you going to do? And
was the hat okay?
The hat was unharmed, unlike me.
But which means he wasn't wearing a helmet.
I wasn't wearing a helmet, but there was no traffic. There was nothing. They're like, here's that guy biking along. Suddenly he flies off the bicycle. There was nothing he hit.
Oh, no.
That's
so
terrible.
that was
a one bike accident.
Yeah,
one
I think
bike
the
accident.
only silver lining, other than the hat being unharmed, is the cute paramedic in the medicine tent after they sent me to.
Paramedics are always cute.
I have to tell you, that is one of the gayest stories I've ever heard. And I loved every minute of it.
Yeah.
Every minute.
Yeah. I've had gayer stories than that, but that's
I know you have.
And by the way, I'm the rector at St. Luke's Episcopal Church in Los Angeles, California, where
Let's go.
Nothing gay ever happens, really.
Really? But you haven't ridden a bike since? No, I'm just kidding.
No, I haven't. I mean, that's the thing.
Really?
So when I see the parents and the child, I'm like, oh, well.
You just give them a little blessing. They're on their way.
I just kind of look away nervously. But, it's okay.
Oh, well, that leads us to you, Gregory.
Boy.
Where are you? What you doing?
I gotta tell you,
I wasn't that nervous about the babies on the backs of the bikes, but now I'm really nervous about the babies wearing cowboy hats on the back of the bikes.
Yeah. In parades. It's not good.
Halfway home, and the randomizer has finally decided to dip into the Wayback Machine. We are traveling to the distant past of May 4th, 2017, where we arrive at episode number 61. Fun fact, this is a rare Greg-less episode. Maybe even the first Greg-less episode. Let me check. No, the second Greg-less episode. And yet, here's my voice anyway, weighing in from 9 years in the future. You just can't keep me out. This was our discussion of the HBO series The Young Pope, and our special guest for that pod was William Bonnell. One of the early reviews of our pod that I've always been proud of was when someone said we could switch on a dime from a silly conversation to a serious one. And while some of that can be chalked up to clever editing, for the most part, it does happen naturally in our conversations, as evidenced by the following clip.
It just makes me think, like, we talk in the Episcopal Church about, well, the traditions are good, but people get stuck in the traditions and we need to modify some of our liturgies and things to reach out to the unchurched so that they feel more welcome here. And at what point do we need to say, here's actually where the boundary is about what we believe and don't believe? We give you a lot of leeway within that because we're all human, but we're not without our own kind of sense of what's right and wrong.
I mean, that's what Pius XIII's message was, which was sort of a brutal parody of Pope Benedict XVI's message. When Benedict, one of his early messages was for a smaller, stronger church, strengthening the faith. Maybe we'll have fewer members. Maybe people will feel turned away, but we really need to strengthen the core of who we are and take a firm stand. That was Benedict's message of a smaller, stronger church. In a way, it's trying to become a pre-Constantinian church before we begin to compromise ourselves with the world.
I mean, straight up the clothes, friends. The bringing back the papal tiara from Washington. I think my favorite outfit was the sunglasses with the green velvet gloves with the rings and then the cope. That was my favorite outfit personally.
My favorite outfit was the white tracksuit. And my favorite moment was when he and his best friend sort of broke free to sort of roam around Rome. And they run into the prostitute and she says, you two look like a couple of priests. And he says, we're not priests. Would priests wear tracksuits? That was just one of my favorite. I thought it was delightful. And I kept wondering, how does he have all these white garments that he's not getting dirty?
Because that's what popes wear. Francis never wears anything other than white. Benedict never wore anything other than white. I mean, when you have all those nuns who are doing your laundry, you can wear white as much as you want.
That is true.
That's why I don't even buy white clothing. That's what I need. I need a bunch of nuns to do my laundry in order to get me like the courage to buy white jeans or something.
It's another miracle.
But also, I love the brocade on the. I don't know what his kind of normal outfit.
It's a white cassock. It's a white
and
cassock.
it was just like the capelet with like the mini cape over the top.
The Mosetta?
Mosetta. Yeah, the Mosetta, which is the show of authority. You'll notice that Benedict XVI no longer wears the Mosetta because there's only one pope. So Francis wears the Mosetta, the white Mosetta. I have never seen that white cassock or Mosetta for any pope, not even Pius XII, with that gold decor on it.
Yeah.
None, never.
That's interesting.
So that connects right away to what we see, that the church is just full. Clergy are just nothing more than a lot of wounded people. They're orphans, they're repressed homosexuals, they're heterosexuals who have low self-esteem, alcoholics. Well, that might be because of all the repression. You really get a sense that these are all wounded souls. Oh, the one that gets sent to Boston to deal with the sex crisis. He says he sort of speaks for them all when he says he can't live anywhere else other than the Vatican.
The street. Yeah, I don't know how to cross the street. Oh.
And they're sort of all like that. And Spencer, when he denounced Lenny in about episode 2, that, just because you feel that you've suffered in your life, now you're just trying to make everybody suffer and to ruin the church. And you just get the sense all these broken people.
Just going to say about the brokenness, like I really believe that that's true, hopefully not in the active bleeding phase of woundedness, but I really do think that many clergy bring into their ministry this experience of brokenness, of our own fallibility. And over time, you find that those are exactly the gifts that God leads with in your own ministry. Now, there needs to be a level of care and healing and health. But I've just noticed in my own ministry, one of the biggest surprises was the parts of my ego that are most fragile. It's exactly those broken places that God sort of shines a light through in my ministry. Gosh, if we all had to be totally whole and healed to do this kind of ministry, it would be a smaller church indeed.
Well, and that element of his orphanness, and when you said it earlier that his absence is presence. I mean, that's the story of his parents. And I don't know whether Venice was an element of letting that go and having that couple who's standing out there, whether they are or are not those people, turning around and walking away, whether they're real or not, I don't know. But his woundedness about being left, he's constructed in the wake of that.
Relationships, Betsy, spot on about like how he creates his own family. And they are a support system, but in some way, at some level, he's still rejecting them. Like Spencer, he could have really gone to him for advice from the start instead of repudiating him. And Sister Mary, she does help him out. I guess she's all right. And then the brother is the brother. So, I mean, he had relationship. And I sort of want to say without any proof, that might be what saves him in a way. Even though he pushes them away throughout the whole show, for most of the show, they do get in and they stick with him. That shocked me. Like when he spoke with the Cardinals, Spencer was the first one to get up and kiss his feet. And then Dussolier, his brother figure, went up and kissed his feet. I was like, wow, they've been against him this whole time, and yet they stay with him.
The foot kissing was not about relationship. It was about submission. The Pope is the Pope. And he's setting the new ground rules, well, the really old ground rules of being the absolute tyrannical, despotic prince of the church. And if you want to stay on this ship, you submit. So they're just saying, yeah, this is the new status quo. There's an irony in there submitting to that centuries-old tradition that no one had done in the last previous 7 decades of kissing the Pope's toe.
Oh, is that right?
It's not about that part isn't about relationship. This is why there's the smashing down of the icon of John Paul II, who was about relationship. This is a return to the medieval papacy, being carried in on the sedes gestatoria, in the papal tiara, advancing forth his velvet slipper, making it very clear that we're back to the medieval papacy.
Moving on to clip number 7, and the randomizer has brought us to the virtual present, episode number 423 from April 27th, 2026. This was when Ryan and I rolled out the ambitious vision for the Pilgrimage Project. 10 journeys on 6 continents telling one human story. The 10-6-1, inviting folks into a world of wonder. I am so incredibly proud of this vision, and am trusting that God will reveal the path for how we'll get there. I can tell you, as someone who has recently walked the Camino, again, there is an absolute hunger for these journeys and these stories in the world outside your door. And I can't wait to see how they're woven together in this project.
You're making strong case here. It's not just the idea of the traditional idea of pilgrimage, but what is it about being back in nature, connecting with fellow walkers, let's just say, if we don't want to call them pilgrims, if you're on the Patagonia Trail, what type of conversations can be had, what type of vulnerabilities are on display when you're on a trail like that with someone, the opportunities for conversation, connection. That's a huge motivating factor behind all of this, whether it's a traditional pilgrimage or something newer, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And I think the hope, and I'm kind of jumping in, looking at our notes here,
the hope here is that we create resources for people. But the hope is that through no matter where it is, what continent, what trail, is that there are conversations that are going to be had. There are experiences, us creating videos or continuing this podcast series, creating a travel resource guide. But the hope is that there's a collection of stories. It's not just that, you or I or a combination of us or other guests along the way are going to just be walking for the sake of walking. I mean, there's a real hope here that there are conversations that will be had along the way that we can't even imagine the vistas of what those would be like, but knowing that based on our past experiences that they're going to be wonderful, and like capturing those in some way to share with whoever comes across the podcast or the YouTube videos or book or whatever comes out of this. And it's almost like, I love how you like talked about each journey, and you've been so intentional about what you've included in this proposal and this big project, if you will. But beyond that, it's kind of hard to say. It's like, we're going to go out there and we have a hunch that sharing that experience can be both informative, inspirational, and aspirational for people. But it's really, really hard to say like what is on the other side of those experiences, right? Which is part of the reason people have done it throughout history, is you don't know until you get out there and set one foot in front of the other.
Right.
It's like we're like Bagginses,
That's right. Hey, that Tolkien guy may have been onto something. I think that what we're likely going to learn in this project, the assumption of our project, is that we're going to actually find a common story on all these far reaches, these far-flung reaches of the world. We're actually going to find a story that unites all of humanity.
I think you're 100% right. And it's going to look and feel and sound and taste and smell different, but there's a thread, man. There's a thread. And we need to grab onto that now more than ever.
So what are we looking at? We're looking to inform people about what is happening on these journeys and why and how people are making sense of it. And we're looking to inspire people. We're looking to show people that there's actually more that unites us than divides us. And while the dividing voices may be the loudest voices, the uniting voices are actually who we are.
That's the great thing about these trips. You're just inherently going to bump into somebody that is radically different from you. You just are. I mean, this is the point but like, you may get in your routine. You may be in a routine in your own community where you're not bumping up against people. Maybe this can inspire you to seek out people who don't think, look, believe, act like you do, and like have a conversation, go for a walk together. Like, that's a huge win on a project like this, right?
Yeah.
Is if people just step out of their front door and go seek something different.
What are we going to make? Just like Ryan said, video series. We're going to have just video journeys that kind of follow along. Starting with the Camino, we're going to start filming that in a month and a half. Can't believe it. Podcasts. On these journeys, I'm going to have short conversations with as many people as possible. We're going to bundle those up into podcast sessions that we'll release on this feed. And yeah, I think that you're right. A journal, something that allows us to write down and reflect what it is that these journeys are doing, not just for us, but for people around the world.
Well, when you take the journeys as a whole, to craft that larger narrative, I think it's going to take some time and space to again, Pete, zoom out.
Yep.
And what does that mean? And I think maybe, print's not dead. I mean, I think some sort of book resource, something is going to be necessary. That the immediacy of the podcast and the videos is one thing, but what does it all mean if we can take a step back and look at it and say, what are some takeaways? Where's that thread? That's where I think we really start to pull on that thread.
Yeah, you should think about our content as ripples on the water. So the podcasts are going to be just daily reflections on what happened those days.
Yeah.
And the videos are going to be what happened on this journey.
Yeah.
And the travel journal is going to be what happened with this project.
That's great. Yeah.
Really quickly to wrap it all up, what are we looking for going forward? We're looking to scale our vision, right? How can we raise funds? How can we expose people to this idea? How can we share it with as many people as possible so that we can get the support and the backing that we need?
Yeah.
Part of this is going to come out of the Camino journey. That's basically going to be like the pilot for the series. But if we can nail that, and if we can then get that out to other people, I think that what you'll see is that folks are going to understand what the project is, and you're going to find that folks are going to pitch in and support us on this.
Yeah.
So that's it. The 10-6-1, 10 journeys, 6 continents, 1 human story. There you go. Clip that. Share it with your friends. Next up, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay. The randomizer is in the mood for some tunes. It has chosen episode number 312, a PC Music Diary episode from March 11th, 2024, when Ricardo and I debated our favorite songs with a place name in the title. I think I shortened it to just city songs on the Spotify playlist, but as you'll hear in this clip, a place can be so much more than just a city. Here's a wonderful peek at that idea from Ricardo.
So John Prine, I mean, I didn't know John Prine that well. And then he died of COVID.
Yeah.
And I just started exploring him a little bit. I don't know all the songs, but some of these songs are just great. I mean, some of them are they're so different from everything that I know. I mean, not crazy different, but so Lake Marie came out in 1995 on an album called Lost Dogs and Mixed Blessings. This is one of those Americana kind of mythical songs. So Lake Marie, it's a real place. It's on the southern border of Wisconsin, almost to Illinois. There's something called the Twin Lakes, Wisconsin, and it's Lake Marie and Lake Elizabeth. So the song Lake Marie it's just great. I don't know how much of it is totally true, but he starts out talking about how he says many years, and he speaks it. The refrain is sung, but then he speaks.
Many years ago, along the Illinois-Wisconsin border, there was this Indian tribe. They found 2 babies in the woods, white babies. One of them was named Elizabeth. She was the fairer of the 2, while the smaller and more fragile one was named Marie. Having never seen white girls before, and living on the 2 lakes, known as the Twin Lakes, they named the larger and more beautiful lake, Lake Elizabeth. And thus the smaller lake that was hidden from the highway became known forever as Lake Marie.
So it's like this mythical kind of foundation story about how these lakes came to be named. And then in the next verse, he's talking about his own relationship with someone. Many years later, I found myself talking to this girl who was standing there with her back turned to Lake Marie. The wind was blowing, especially through her hair. There was 4 Italian sausages cooking on the outdoor grill, and they were sizzling, he says. And then he marries her. He says, many years later, we found ourselves in Canada trying to save our marriage and perhaps catch a few fish. And so it's almost like he's creating this story about this place in which these kind of eventful things happen, right? The 2 little babies are found. It's named. He has a tie to it personally because he meets his wife there. And then they go back later in the song to kind of recapture their love kind of thing. But then this weird thing happens. And there's a verse about like how there were 2 bodies found there naked. And he saw it on the news. He said on the TV news. And it's all this stuff that happens there. And he says, and it was in a black and white video. And do you know what blood looks like in a black and white video? Shadows. That's what it looks like. And then he says, all the love we shared between her and me was slammed up against the banks of old Lake Marie. So all this weird, it's like this mythical song, all these different things that happen there, like violence and death, relationship and life, foundational mythical stuff. And it's a great song. It's like we were standing by peaceful waters. It's It's fantastic. It grows on you, and it's also just a little mysterious. Like, who are the dead bodies? Like, what's that about?
Yeah.
And I think what he's just sort of creating a mood for a place by telling these different things that happen there over time. And isn't that true of every place? And especially a place that's more rural, you know? Oh, I remember the storm of 54 when all these shacks you see here now, they were swept away. They were beautiful houses, and now they're shacks or whatever, right?
Yeah.
You got to listen to that song, Greg.
Okay, we're coming down to the wire, and our penultimate offering is a clip from Going on 30, episode 183 from September 20th, 2021. This was the time that Betsy and I chatted about Postcards from the Edge, starring Meryl Streep and Shirley MacLaine, a loose autobiography of Carrie Fisher and her relationship with her mom, Debbie Reynolds. Going on 30 is the one pod we do that has its own show outline, and one of my favorite things is checking in on our stats about the movie section, because Betsy and I get to let our hair down a little. Here's a sample. Let's see. I've got some stats about this movie.
Stats.
Postcards from the Edge opened on September 12th, 1990. Does that count as a summer movie? September 12th? That's after Labor Day. So
That's
I guess
after Labor Day. No, there's no white jeans, and this is not a summer movie.
Not a summer movie. It had a domestic gross of $38 million, making it the number 33 grossing movie of 1990.
Okay.
So,
for an adult contemporary film,
middle of the road. It is the number 2,274th top grossing movie of all time, between.
Oh, no.
Postcards from the Edge comes between a movie called Dead Again.
Oh.
That's the Kenneth Branagh movie.
Oh, with Emma Thompson.
Yeah.
And let's see, Andy Garcia.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And Robin Williams. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So it comes between Dead Again and Showtime, which is an Eddie Murphy, Robert De Niro movie from 2002, a buddy cop movie from 2002. This was the tough times of Eddie Murphy's career, this 2000s period. So Flirt, Marry, Kill, you get Dead Again, Postcards from the Edge, and Showtime.
Okay, again, Dead Again is a woman who has lost her memory, is taken in by a Los Angeles orphanage, and a private eye is enlisted to track down her identity. But he soon finds that he might have a past life connection to her that endangers their lives.
Past life, like Shirley MacLaine.
Like Shirley MacLaine. It's all connected. All right, so I'm going to kill Showtime.
Yes, yeah.
I will flirt with Dead Again, and I'll marry Postcards with the Edge.
Ding, ding, ding. It's the only correct answer. It's the answer that I have as well. Postcards has an 84% on Rotten Tomatoes. Good score.
Oh, okay.
Roger Ebert says, Postcards from the Edge contains too much good writing and too many good performances to be a failure, but its heart is not in the right place. 3 out of 4 stars.
What's that shade? What does that mean?
I don't know.
Its heart's not in the right place.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, honestly,
maybe Roger
I have
didn't
no
like
idea what Roger's getting.
It took him
there.
too much behind the scenes in movies, and he likes the fantasy. He doesn't want to know all the nitty gritty.
Janet Maslin, film and literary critic at the New York Times, says, as funny and well observed as the film's mother-daughter dynamics are, its baleful view of Hollywood behavior is even better.
That's better.
Yeah.
I like that.
How did it do at the Oscars? It did not win a single Oscar. No wins for Postcards, but it was nominated for 2. Betsy, what was Postcards from the Edge nominated for?
Streep?
Yes. Meryl Streep for Best Actress. Yes. Best Actress.
Screenplay?
Not screenplay. No.
Huh.
No. You're going to want to thank the end credits here for this last
song.
It is. Best Original Song.
I'm checking out this Heartbreak Hotel. I ain't gonna live on lonely street no more, no more.
Written by Shel Silverstein. I'm checking out.
Weird.
Yeah, I'm checking out is a Shel Silverstein. So if you want to dig out where the sidewalk ends as you're listening to I'm checking out.
A quasi country rootin'
Yeah.
tootin' bar situation, which she was giving me some Melissa Etheridge vibes.
Yeah, well, it's the jean
yeah.
jacket. The jean jacket's what gives you the Melissa Etheridge.
I think it is. But I think also there's some vocal quality there.
I guess so. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Would Bonnie Raitt have been
Yes.
popular at this point?
Yes,
Maybe a
she
little
would
Bonnie
have.
Raitt. Maybe a little Bonnie Raitt.
Yeah. Who has Dennis Quaid in one of her videos? Boom! Are you ready for a thing called love?
It's all connected.
It's all connected.
All right, we have made it to the end of the road, and the randomizer loved that last going on 30 clip so much that it wants to hear more. On January 19th, 2026, Betsy and I talked about Apollo 13 for episode number 409. And what a fitting way to end this 2026 birthday look back by talking about a space travel movie the same year that human beings traveled the furthest away from this planet than ever before. For the complications, politics, and exorbitant budgets that come with the space program, it really is such a testament to the tenacity of the human spirit. What new horizons will we see in our lifetimes? Who knows? But one thing's for sure, we are never going to stop trying to go further, which is kind of the mission statement for this here pod.
Gene, we have a situation brewing with the carbon dioxide.
We had a CO2 filter problem on the lunar module.
5 filters on the limb.
Which were meant for 2 guys for a day and a half. So I told the doc...
They're already up to 8 on the gauges. Anything over 15 and you get impaired judgment, blackouts, the beginnings of brain asphyxia.
What about the scrubbers on the command module?
They take square cartridges.
The ones on the limb are round.
Tell me this isn't a government operation.
This just isn't a contingency we've remotely looked at.
Those CO2 levels are going to be getting toxic.
Well, I suggest you gentlemen invent a way to put a square peg in a round hole. Rapidly.
Okay, people, listen up. People upstairs handed us this one, and we gotta come through. We gotta find a way to make this fit into the hole for this. Using nothing but that. Let's get it organized.
Okay, let's build a filter.
What's the lasting legacy of this movie? Betsy, I wrote down space disasters. And the reason that I said that was because you and I are in a generation that is kind of defined by the space disaster. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, I wrote that as a question, but I kind of mean it as are we the space disaster generation? And what does that say about us? What I have listed here is Challenger, obviously. Yes. Columbia. Mm-hmm. All of the issues with the Mir space station. I mean, like, people didn't die, but that thing barely stayed up there. I mean, that was always in the news, like, that there was something going wrong with the Mir. And then, obviously, all of the SpaceX failures and, like, all those rockets that keep ending up in the ocean. So I guess that's my question is, like, we grew up during this time where space was a thing and disasters were a thing. I just wonder what that says about us as a generation.
Yeah, I mean, we get I'm actually looking to see who the creators are on For All Mankind. Because, there's an element of, I think, for our generation, for Generation X, we are so told the stories of the 1960s. Mm-hmm. And whether that's, hippies or the war or the kind of hope that space offered, the Earthrise shot, some of the shots of Earth that they actually used in this movie were taken by Jim Lovell on Apollo 8, that there's kind of this glorious time of some variety, even though it was extremely tumultuous, that was kind of back there that we didn't get to touch because we weren't here yet. Yeah. And so then there was all this hope that we were living into this new age. with the shuttle, and Challenger was particularly difficult and sad. And then that we're having a civilian go into space, and that's when it happens, and that sort of thing. And then I recently watched the Sally Ride documentary that came out maybe a year and a half ago. Quite good, highly recommend. But it was like there was a certain point after serving on one of those commissions that Sally was done.
Yeah.
She was like, I can't, just so fed up with how when science is not allowed to be, we see it limited and boundless, when it's bounded and its budgets and its bottom lines and it's even in For All Mankind becomes, are we having guns up here? Like, what are we doing? Like, are we weaponizing space? Like, what's happening?
Yeah.
Because those are the questions that human beings have wrestled with for eternity.
Yeah, I
How do
mean,
we how do
yeah.
we commercialize it? How do I make money off of it? How do I think again, it's another one of these things that we get pitched a narrative of it being this pure thing. But then, it's actually people. And people are flawed
Exactly.
and
And when you're talking about NASA, bureaucracies and
yes.
And
Yes.
funding, like, God, we gotta
Yeah.
pay for another aircraft carrier. How are we gonna, maintain your space shuttle and that kind of stuff? It's just, yeah. Now, I think that the Challenger disaster was so formative an experience for Generation X. So, for me, I was 7.
Hmm.
You were
I was like sixth grade, fifth grade.
so like 12,
Yeah.
13, yeah.
Hmm.
Was such a traumatic experience for kids at that time because of the teacher angle and all of that stuff.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that it really showed that these things are dangerous. It's like up until that point, space travel was just, oh, it's this great adventure. And look at these astronauts. And oh my gosh, this is amazing watching them go up into space. And it's like, didn't necessarily feel life threatening in the way that post Challenger, like, I remember watching space shuttle launches and thinking, gosh, these people are nuts to do this.
Hmm.
There are other generations that have had to deal with technology, pushing the bounds of technology, right? So, like, for us, it's Challenger, but for a generation before us, it could be the
Hmm.
Amelia Earhart disasters. It's like, you
Hmm.
just don't know. Like, all of these things that push human achievement forward, they come with like consequences kind of built in. And I think that our generation is the one that sort of understands that, maybe in a little bit different way than the hopefulness of boomers,
Mm.
when it came to the space program.
Well, and I think too, like one of the coolest people I've ever met is because he was acolyting at my church and went to my church was Charles Bolden, who was NASA administrator under Obama.
Mm.
And, from like '09 to 14, I think. But he came here and spoke at Episcopal. So I invited him to come. And it's still there are, the people who are involved in that program who are real true believers in pushing the boundaries of human ability and are fascinated by space.
Mhm.
And yeah,
But
it's
yeah,
still
there's a
it's such a he's so inspiring
yeah,
to
there's a
me.
reason that Mark Rober has the number of subscribers on YouTube that he does. Like, it is
Yeah.
fascinating watching a scientist, like a rocket scientist, and someone who's in this, like, talk about it because they talk about it passionately. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, we had stuff like Challenger, but we also had movies like Space Camp and stuff. I mean, like, listen, space was cool when we were
This was cool. I
kids.
grew up in Alabama. We were like right there near space camp
Right.
in Huntsville,
That's right.
right? I mean, it was
Um,
still really, even though I'm not imagining myself going into space anytime soon at all,
right.
but it is still really cool.
And I will say this, even though Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, these are two very gross people. I do think it was necessary for space travel to go private in this country. Not only for the expenses, it's way too expensive to send somebody to space, but because it's kind of too cavalier an industry for government. Like you kind of need it to be private.
Yeah. And I think especially with American hubris and our own, Western expansion tendencies to kind of, let's go into this area. Oh, there's nothing official going on up here. Oh,
right.
Great. I don't always trust us at those vacuums, so to say.
All right, we did it. 2026 birthday sampler episode in the books. Thank you all for walking the path with Popping Collars for the last dozen years, and thanks for giving us the motivation to go even further. This silly little pod that grew from Betsy and I wanting to have an excuse to talk to each other after seminary has become such a major part of my ministry and personal life, and it still blows my mind that people listen to it. Keep an eye out to the horizon for all of our upcoming content. Let us know some of your favorite episodes of the pod at poppingcollarspodcast@gmail.com. Do the various subscribe, follow, whatever button functions on the various platforms where you find this pod. And do me one last favor. Keep those collars popped, will you? Okay, great. And we'll see you next time.